Poverty. That is something I've been thinking about recently as I look through my timeline and I saw this video that showed an anti-poor, or I think it was anti-poverty law that was passed in Denmark, particularly Copenhagen, that tries to deal with the influx of immigrants and the hardship that they have to deal with since migrating. Yeah, so I'm gonna delve into that today, so stay tuned. Before we gotta get into this video, we have to peel back the layers of where did this mindset of poverty came from, and the people at the top, the ones who have all the wealth, where did they get this anti-poverty mindset from? It has a history to it, and we're going to look at it right now in this article right here. Okay, so let's look at penal colonies. A penal colony or exile colony is a settlement used to exile prisoners and separate them from the general population by placing them in a remote location, often an island or distant colonial territory. Although the term can be used to refer to a correctional facility located in a remote location, it is more commonly used to refer to communities of prisoners overseen by wardens or governors having absolute authority. If you've ever heard of a tiny country called the United States and a tiny country called Australia, they were once considered penal colonies. Yeah. Who would have thought? So I took a look at some, laws throughout the UK over history, and one thing I've noticed is that once society started to build up and there was an influx of capitalism, people all of a sudden felt like people were poor because of their own volition, not thinking that in nature the general consensus of people are poor, like in the quote unquote capitalist mindset. Most people live at a certain level, and that is the larger of the population. I don't understand what the people at the top don't understand. You're trying to get rid of something called poverty, but that is where most people are at the level at in nature. So we're going to get into that some more. And so above what you're looking at is some of the efforts that government has tried to improve things and to get people out of poverty. This just kind of breaks down what some of the things they did. And so more about penal colonies. We're looking at the British Empire. So with the passage of the Transportation Act of 1717, the British government initiated the penal transportation of indentured servants to Britain's colonies in the Americas. Although none of the North American colonies were penal colonies, British merchants would be in charge of transporting the convicts across the Atlantic, where in the colonies their indentures would be auctioned off to planters. Many of the indentured servants were sentenced to 7 years term, which gave rise to the colloquial term His Majesty's 7-year passengers. It's an estimated that between 1717 and 1776, about 30,000 convicts were transported to at least 9, and I'll continue on here, to at least 9 of the continental colonies, whereas between 1700 and 1775, about 250,000 to 300,000 white immigrants were brought to the mainland of North America as a whole. More than 2/3 of these felonies were transported to the Chesapeake to work the southern landowners in Maryland during the 30 years between 1776, convicts composed more than one quarter of all immigrants. However, it is commonly maintained that the vast majority of felons taken to Americas were political criminals, not those guilty of social crimes such as thieves. For example, it was noted of Virginia that the crimes of which they were convicted were briefly political, and the number transported for social crimes were never considered. So we'll stop there. They can say as much as they want that North America was not a penal colony, but the proof is in the pudding. If the vast majority of people migrating, well, let's just say it was a quarter, quote unquote, a quarter of the immigrants coming over were considered criminals. I don't understand. You can mesh how you want. That is a large percentage of your population that is coming that have a criminal background, political or whatever. And even if you do watch a lot of British shows today, they do show that some of the people that, even though they had a political criminal past, they also had other criminality in their history. So it's not a clean slate. I mean, it's really funny because when you look at a lot of people who are tracing their roots, when they do start to trace their roots in Europe, they find that the vast majority of these people doing the trace their roots, their ancestors had a criminal past. They were either very poor or they didn't live a very, how should I say, productive life. So yeah, they can say that it wasn't penal, but I don't buy it. So I'm going to give you a snippet of the video that I saw on my timeline talking about Denmark's new law in Copenhagen. So let's take a look at that.
The suburb of Mjølnerparken north of Copenhagen has a bad reputation. Under Danish law, it is considered what's called a parallel society. That label shocks many who live here, people such as Saeed, a young architecture student.
If you grew up here and you experience like the government is kind of like enforcing rules, but only on a part of, the society, you're gonna feel like there's no justice.
Since 2018, Danish authorities have established criteria to define parallel societies, often also called ghettos. Among them are unemployment over 40%, a crime rate above the national average, and above all, 50 or more % of the inhabitants must be of non-Western origin. If these criteria are met, the dismantling can start. Here, 2 buildings were leveled and 2/3 of the social housing units will be privatized.
I'm sure after listening to that, and I do encourage you to go watch the full video, like how do we go about answering this question of how to deal with poverty, how to deal with the poor, how to deal with people who are less fortunate? That is the big question. And it baffles me that some countries have kind of figured it out in a strange way. And one of the places I want to take note of is Japan. They don't have everything right, but they do have an understanding that maybe they don't want to push the whole notion that we're happy about us having poor or people in poverty in our country. But because of the mindset of the culture, it's a culture of discipline, cleanliness. I want to say morality, but everyone has a different moral compass. But they have certain things that they do strongly believe in. And it's even down to the people that are less fortunate. Like they practice the same ideas. And you will see this in the next video, the clip I'm going to show you, what a slum in Japan looks like. And I will also put the link for this video. And the comments below are very funny because people were like, this is not a slum. This is cleaner than the slums of this country or that country or this city or that city. And it's hilarious. Let's get into it.
撤収せんと無理。夜遅かったらもう何が歩いとるか分からへん。だもう俺はもう ちょっと薄暗くなってきたらもう帰るもん。それから部屋から出へん。これは。
The corner of this street is the usual hangout for a small group of older men. No one came this morning because they're probably still hungover. Later in the day, they wake up to eat. Then they gather again, drinking and chatting. When they get drunk, they find a place to sleep. Every day, it's the same routine. Some might think that living and drinking like this is aimless. On the other hand, these people have worked hard all their lives, but didn't get rich. They're old and have few, if any, responsibilities now. Maybe drinking is the only joy left in life. In the afternoon, the atmosphere at the corner of the street livens up. The drinkers gradually gather. They have sincere smiles. They talk to each other in a friendly way.
And even though Japan isn't where they once were, they've sort of figured out how to deal with their level of poverty in their country. So maybe we can learn a thing or two from them. I learned about a terminology this year. I learned so much this year. You have no clue. I learned about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you really look at that pyramid, I know for a fact, I mean, I'm okay, let me not toot my horn, but I feel like most of the people who are politicians are aware of Maslow's hierarchy, even though I didn't learn it. Maybe I did and I don't remember, but I don't remember coming up on this in college. I don't remember. And I'm guessing it would probably be in psychology class because it's a sociological, I don't know if that's a word, but it's something that deals with your psychology. So I'm guessing it might have been in psychology class. I did do psychology class. Don't remember coming across this, but anywho, I learned about it this year. And when you look at the pyramid, most people are on the ground. They're on the base level of it. And that is what I just don't get, that politicians don't get. Also, I know that the people at the top, I don't think they think that they've reached where they need to be or where they're ultimately going to be. Even they know that there is a level of innovation that we still haven't even tapped into yet. And if you look through history, most of the people that are the ones that are really digging deep and really innovating things that are state of the art are people who are in the basic needs. They're the ones that have established some of the most renowned things today. And so you do need those people ultimately. And with that being said, let's conclude on this note. Maybe they don't want poverty to be widespread, but they need people to be hungry enough for life and growth and innovation that they will push through and move their self up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And there's a fine line with that. But at the same time, you have to treat people with respect. Let's leave it there. So if you want to hear more like this, please do like and subscribe, and I will get back to you with more videos. Thanks for joining me on this one. Take care. Bye.